This is the work of acclaimed photographer Nicholas Nixon. Nixon was born in 1947 in Detroit, Michigan, and gained notoriety for his large format work, recording subjects with meticulous detail. While the breadth of his portfolio covers many different and thought-provoking projects, he's probably best known for his long-running series, The Brown Sisters. Starting in 1975, he took a single portrait of his wife and her three sisters, and repeated this year on year, chronicling their growing older, always posed from left to right in the same order. I find this a really poignant and beautiful project. For me, it says something profound about time passing and our powerlessness within that, but also it subverts the portrait we expect from a photograph of four sisters. They're not smiling at the camera or formally posed, they're just allowed to be. And this makes me think of how the media and society views women aging, and highlights how manufactured and divorced from reality that is. Alongside his personal work, Nixon was a part-time professor at Massachusetts College of Art and Design. However, in 2018, an investigation was brought against him after more than a dozen undergraduate students came forward with allegations of sexually inappropriate behaviour. They alleged that he'd been making sexually explicit comments and propositions to them, as well as pressuring them to pose nude for him. As a result of this, Nixon no longer works at Massachusetts College of Art and Design. Unfortunately, Nixon is not the first photographer to be accused of sexual misconduct. Iconic American fashion photographer Terry Richardson has been repeatedly accused of sexual assault and exploitation of his models during shoots. Renowned fashion and portrait photographer Mario Testino was accused by 18 assistants and models who worked with him of sexual assault and harassment. Another eminent fashion photographer, Bruce Weber, has also had several accusations of sexual assault brought against him by a number of his models. And the list doesn't stop there, unfortunately. This problem extends out to other creative disciplines, as well as other types of accusations. Painters, directors, musicians, authors, whether it's sexual assault or domestic abuse or anti-Semitic or racist or transphobic views, sometimes the person who created that work we love will commit acts that we find morally reprehensible. So how do we reconcile this as consumers of that work? I love the photographic work of Nicholas Nixon, but I'm disgusted by what he's alleged to have done. When I see his work now, it's tainted for me. But am I right to feel this way? Should I separate the photographer from their work? Should I view all work entirely on its own merits, regardless of who created it? I'm not the first person who has asked this question, and when it comes to the debate around the separation of art from the artist, many people start by citing Death of the Author. Death of the Author is a 1967 essay by French literary critic and theorist Roland Barthes. The essay was a significant marker in the end of structuralism and the birth of post-structuralism. Structuralism, in short, sees the culture, context and genre in which a piece of work was created as an integral part of the work itself, and therefore the framework by which we should analyse and interpret that work. The Death of the Author puts forward the notion that the author does not really own their work, and it's the viewer's relationship with that work that really finalises its meaning. And if we take the relationship between the viewer and the artwork as being the central defining factor of how we should analyse work, then the artist is irrelevant. The work becomes divorced from the artist as soon as it's released into the public domain. Many people fall back on this when it's uncovered that an artist has done something that doesn't align with their moral code. It doesn't matter what J.K. Rowling says about trans people, because I personally took a message of tolerance and acceptance of difference from the Harry Potter books. It doesn't matter what Nicholas Nixon has done to vulnerable young women, because I personally take a feminist message from the Brown Sisters project. And so on. And this is a perfectly valid argument. It makes logical sense. Rosemary's Baby is still the same film as it was before we found out that Roman Polanski has committed some pretty abhorrent acts. And for me, while I understand this argument, I personally struggle with it. I can't look at the work of Terry Richardson without being reminded of the horrible stories I've heard from people that he photographed. The media takes a slightly different approach and tends to work on how much of the artist's personality is imbued within the work itself. You're not likely to see TV networks rushing to fill empty slots with episodes of The Cosby Show anytime soon, but it wouldn't be out of the question to see a Roman Polanski film put on TV. But my main problem with the death of the author argument is that it's theoretical, and it's all to do with my own personal perception, and I find that too self-indulgent. For me, the much more important issue is that by continuing to consume the work of bad people, we are directly and indirectly complicit in enabling them to do what they do. Even if I were to pirate the films of Roman Polanski in order to avoid giving any financial support, I would still be adding value to his work and sending the message that someone who has been convicted of the rape of a 13-year-old girl will still be celebrated and admired as long as they make good enough films. For all living artists who have power and influence, the issue has direct real-world implications. I have an emotional attachment to the Harry Potter series, but it's not about me. My feelings do not trump the very real problem of supporting someone who I believe uses their platform to promote transphobic pseudoscience. But then again, is this an overly simplistic way of looking at it? Also embedded within that particular franchise are people like Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson who are using their platforms to promote trans rights. Do I also want to devalue their input? And then what about the positive effect on the world that great art makes? By denying the world the films of Roman Polanski, of Repulsion, Rosemary's Baby, Chinatown, are we stripping our cultural landscape of seminal work that will enrich many people's lives? Could we be removing the catalyst that enthuses and inspires future artists that will go on to be a positive force in the world? And where do we draw the line? Pablo Picasso was a horrible misogynist. Should we remove his works from our galleries? Wagner was a big influence on the Nazis due to his anti-Semitic and racist views. Should we stop performing his music? These are difficult questions. Is it okay to separate the art from the artist completely? Is it enough to celebrate the art but be vocal about how you don't condone the artist's actions? Is the only course of morally acceptable action to boycott their work, sending out the message that having made great art does not give you free rein to do bad things without consequence? But by renouncing someone's work completely, are we building a wall and preventing dialogue that could help people grow and learn? Are we discouraging nuanced analysis from fans in favour of pushing them into divisive thinking? Or by condemning great art to the scrap heap, could we actually be doing more harm? Personally, I am lost on this one. I love Nicholas Nixon's photographs. I love Roman Polanski's films. But I also feel strongly about how much work we need to do in society to combat rape culture and sexual abuse. I honestly don't know the answer. Or maybe I really do know the answer deep down, but confirmation bias is clouding my judgment due to my desire to hold on to those works I love. I strongly advise you to scrutinise yourself for confirmation bias. Do you have an agenda in your own head? Do you want the photographer, the artist, the musician, the author to be innocent or right in order to calm your own cognitive dissonance? Because if you've spent a long time admiring and supporting an artist, the knowledge that you've been supporting something bad is not a nice thought. Believing that accusations are untrue or what the person did or said isn't actually that bad is by far the easier and more preferable option compared to giving up things you love and finding out that you have been complicit in supporting something morally reprehensible. It's a difficult one, but I do advise you not to be a Quentin Tarantino in these situations.
How could you defend this director who raped a 13-year-old?
She was down with it. You know, he had sex with a minor. All right, that's not rape. I mean, not a 13. Not for these 13-year-old party girls out there.
Oh my.
Really?
But each case is up to your own judgment. It's not for me or anyone else to tell you how to feel about artwork by people who've done things you disagree with. And I also encourage you not to judge other people too much for taking a different path to you on this. But if there's one clear message I would like to send out with this video, it's this. If you are a creative who has achieved any kind of recognition or following, don't abuse your power and influence. It'll make the world a worse place, and it's highly likely that it'll eventually come back to you and you'll be held accountable for your actions. Your life's work will be forever tainted, and that is how you'll be remembered. But speaking as consumers of work, can we truly separate art from the artist? Should we? Was it right for Nixon's photographic work to be removed from the ICA Boston after the allegations against him came to light? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. I'd be interested to hear some opinions on this. So a little bit of a different video this time, but I wanted to make it because this is a subject I really do struggle with, and if anyone has any thoughts or insights here, please do leave them down in the comments, because anything that might help me calm my own cognitive dissonance beyond anything else, but I think it'll be an interesting discussion as well. So also thank you to all people who support me on Patreon. You are wonderful people. I love you all, genuinely. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who buys my Lightroom presets, and to people who buy my motion graphics templates that I released in the last video that have been a little bit more popular than I was expecting, which has been a great thing. But all of that goes into supporting this channel and allows me to make more content for you. So genuinely thank you very much. I think I'm going to see you again soon, so I've got another video sort of lined up. So take care everyone, hope you're all doing all right, and see you soon. Bye bye.